your friend Jack Ma came here in 2008. And obviously, you may still remember in 2008 what Alibaba was. But my understanding is, in the last 26 years, Alibaba was transformed into a pretty simple B2B e-commerce company to today one of the largest AI plus cloud computing company. Could you share with us a little bit about how Alibaba has been so transformative, and what are sort of the secret sauce of Alibaba that managed to turn itself into different kinds of companies every 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, just a little bit of historical context. When I joined Alibaba in 1999, China's GDP per capita was $800, and today is $13,000. The growth has been tremendous. And I always tell my friends that I'm in a very fortunate position because I lived through the confluence of the rise of China as a manufacturing power and the economy of China rising, and the advent of the internet, the growth driven by the internet. And sort of sitting at the intersection of that, I was able to, from the Alibaba vantage point, witness this sort of dual engine growth. It was quite tremendous. And Alibaba's original idea, like you said, is a B2B website because Jack thought that he wanted to use the internet to level the playing field for all the small businesses in China, trading companies, small manufacturers, which, if you recall, before the WTO, China entered the WTO in 2001, but before that, international trade had to be done through state-owned trading companies. But once China entered the WTO, it opened up trade. And that was the beginning of China's development as a manufacturing base, because people started to set up factories. They could see opportunities to trade using the internet to trade with the rest of the world. So Alibaba's inception was a business-to-business website. We sold things, or we helped small businesses sell things wholesale. And by the way, Alibaba's first website was in English language, because it was facing to buyers around the world, right? It was an outside-facing website. And then we evolved from B2B commerce to consumer commerce, which became the largest consumer shopping platform, Taobao, today. We also developed payment because there was a pain point. Buyers and sellers didn't trust each other. Buyers didn't want to pay first, and sellers didn't want to ship the product. So we invented a thing called Alipay, which in its original form was an escrow system to allow the trade to happen. And then we got involved in logistics, and so on and so forth. And you ask about the secret sauce. I think the secret sauce is that a good company always develops when they follow customer needs and customer demands. We basically follow what our customers wanted, and we developed everything organically. I would always, if you people in the audience here, the students later on, you will go out and found companies. You would always want to favor organic development over acquisitions. Now, of course, we've also made some acquisitions. Some of them were successful, and some of them failed spectacularly. But always favor the organic development because because you're developing it through your team, and your team has the best DNA in terms of the Alibaba culture and innovation. So that's how we sort of evolved. And then the reason we got into the cloud computing business was also to service our own need. It's not because someone decided, oh, cloud is a good business, we should, it's a good industry to be in, and we went into it. That's not the case. We developed the cloud business 16 years ago. 16 years ago, nobody was talking about cloud computing. And we said we we were looking at all the data we were managing, and the consumer platform was handling massive amounts of transactions. And our CTO came to us and said, if we continue to use third-party software and hardware, we were using servers from Dell and IBM, storage device from EMC, database software from Oracle. If we continue to use that, we will later on hand over all of our profits to these technology vendors. So we developed cloud computing really out of necessity, out of the need to become self-reliant in technology, which is, later on, we'll talk about that as a sort of national theme. And so we had a team that focused on that development of sort of an operating software. Not, when you think about operating software, you think about a single computer, but this is an operating software that worked across data centers, worked across multiple computers. And why? Because we need to do parallel compute in order to manage the large amount of data that we have. That's the genesis of our cloud business. We really ate our own dog food, right? And used the technology ourselves. And then later on, we decided, this technology is so good, why don't we open it up to third-party customers? And that's how we went into the cloud business.
So I'm going to come back to the open source strategy. And we had a conversation last week about this. But today's theme is broad and deep, and is obviously very, very important. Let me give a short introduction about why we picked this topic. Last week when we had a conversation, the first thing that Joe told me is, I'm not a good trade or macroeconomist, but you got a degree from Yale, major in economics, so I don't know how that can be. And very quickly you convinced me that you're actually a very smart and savvy economist, may not be a macroeconomist. And then I explained to him that Edward Chen is one of the most influential economists and trained in Hong Kong and trained so many generations of great students who have become very successful in the private sector and also in the government. So I said, we don't have a lot of leeway to adjust the theme. It has to be about China's economic growth. So we added technological drivers, knowing that you invest a lot in technologies, and obviously Alibaba has been doing great on that front. Why 10 years, right? In 10 years, 2035, the Communist Party, the Chinese government, has targeted that to be the year to turn China to be a mid-level developed economy. What does it mean? I actually don't know. But just imagine that we need China to have a GDP per capita around $30,000 US, which is possible. And interestingly, between the meeting we had last week and today, the Premier of China, Li Qiang, gave a speech in Shanghai saying that in 5 years, 2030, China should have around $24 trillion US in GDP. So what does it mean? It means that from now, which is around 20 trillion US dollars GDP, to grow to 24 trillion, you are calculating the math in your head right now, I can tell. So that needs around 5+% nominal GDP growth. Which is not impossible, right? So suppose you have 4% real GDP growth plus 1 or 2% inflation, then you will get it in 5 years. So it's not a dream, it's totally feasible, but to have 4% real GDP growth, we need a lot of innovation, and the innovation needs to be turned into productivity growth. So here comes the general question for you, okay? What are the key or influential features in China's national tech plans that you think will guarantee that kind of success in the next 5 years or in the next 10 years?
Yeah, well I think this is a very topical question because China just published the 15th five-year plan from the Central Committee. And I think some of you might have read the whole plan. I read a summary of it. But there's really two major takeaways from the five-year plan. Number one, China wants to continue to be a manufacturing powerhouse. I think the emphasis on the manufacturing economy, which is part of the real economy, is right there. That's what the leadership in China has clearly stated. This is where we want to be. You compare China to the rest of the world, consumption is actually a very small percentage of GDP, less than 40%, whereas in the United States, consumption is 70% of GDP, right? So China is actually making things. China is looking at GDP growth from production and, to an extent, exporting that production to the rest of the world. Because China is, I believe today and 10, 20 years from now, China will continue to be the manufacturing base to supply the rest of the world. So that's number one. Number two, the plan says we want to become technology self-reliant. I think this is very much both the foresight of the leadership as well as a reaction to what's going on with geopolitics, where the United States and some of the European countries are restricting critical technology from China. So China believes that we have to develop our own technology, which is China's already today very much well on the path of doing that. Now, going back to the first goal of maintaining a manufacturing base, if you look at the history of China and how China has become a wealthy country, I said $800 GDP per capita to 13,000 today, and we'll get to 30,000, in the next 10 years. The path of wealth creation has been in production and making things and supplying that to the rest of the world. And I actually think that this is, but there's a lot of criticism around that. They say, oh, China has excess capacity. They're exporting excess capacity to the rest of the world, as though that's a terrible thing. Well, if you think about it, did everybody criticize the German car industry for having excess capacity when Germans exported all of their cars? I mean, definitionally, excess capacity simply means you have production capacity that your domestic economy cannot absorb. Therefore, you resort to exports. But the use of the word excess seems to be like a dirty word, but it's not. It shouldn't be. Because how a country becomes wealthy is to make things and collect money from the rest of the world to make their own citizens wealthy. And I truly believe that continuing on this path of being a manufacturing center for the world, and now high-tech manufacturing, not making shoes or T-shirts, if we continue on that path, China will continue to grow its economy, and the citizens will continue to gain wealth and gain disposable income. And at some point, consumption will come. Today, we through the Alibaba platform, we see a lot of consumption. I give you a data point. There are something like 56 million. There's 56 million people on our platform that are spending more than $6,000 per year on Taobao. Okay, that's way more than the average disposable income of Chinese citizens. But we already have the scale, that many people that are spending that amount of money. So at some point, consumption will come. But I think the leadership in China understands the foundation to a healthy economy, growth, and wealth creation stands with having a strong manufacturing base. And today, it's high-tech manufacturing. So China is the best in the world when it comes to making electric vehicles, batteries, solar panels, and all those things that the rest of the world needs.
So everyone talks about AI, and obviously China has been investing a lot in AI, and the DeepSeek moment has really shocked the world. And I guess a more general question about the national tech agenda in China is, again, I asked you the secret sauce question for Alibaba. Now I'm going to ask you the secret sauce question for China's technological policy. How did they do it, right? I mean, there were export controls by foreign companies, foreign countries, and China just 10 years ago was, really doing simple manufacturing, and now, as you said, advanced manufacturing with different aspects of AI that appear to be competitive and even challenging to the US in terms of their technological leadership. So could you, may I push the question a little bit forward to ask you to focus a little bit on AI and what are sort of the secret sauce or the national policies that promote that kind of growth?
Well, obviously, when you talk about national policy, China is, the government has identified areas for investment, for example, in semiconductors, in semiconductor manufacturing process, in equipment that makes semiconductors, all that. I think that's all good, but the part that I focus on that I really thought was very interesting is a couple of months ago, the State Council came up with a sort of AI plan. And Chinese people are very practical. It's very goal-oriented. The AI plan simply said by 2030, which is 5 years from now, we should see 90% penetration of AI agents and devices. That's what the State Council said. So they basically said, here's the goal. We'll let the market figure it out. Whether the market is state-owned enterprises or private entrepreneurs, they will figure out how to proliferate and make high penetration of AI in China. And I think that's really a great policy because all of us, as we're all part of sort of the so-called AI race, right? The race between China and US AI. At the end of the day, you don't keep score by looking at, how good these large language models are. The score is being kept by the adoption rate. The more people that adopt AI, the more society will benefit. So China's whole approach is the proliferation of AI. And I think that's a great policy.
So I remember I talked to you last week about the uniqueness of China's AI ecosystem. And then you talked a lot about the talent pool, the infrastructure, the fact that China has advanced manufacturing while a lot of advanced economies don't have today, as well as the ability to generate energy efficiently. So could you share with us, with the audience about the competitive advantage of China in terms of becoming an AI superpower?
So right now, I think the way Americans want to define who's winning the AI race is purely by looking at how good the large language model is. So one day it's OpenAI, the next day it's Anthropic, and then the Alibaba Quinn model becomes. By the way, the Alibaba Quinn model just won like a 2-week contest of trading cryptocurrencies and stocks.
Wow.
They ask something like 10 different models, American models and Chinese models. The Alibaba model actually became the winner of the whole thing, and DeepSeek is second. By the way, huge amount of respect for DeepSeek, our neighbor in Hangzhou. They're doing incredible work. So if you compare, we don't look at the AI race according to the American definition. We look at the entire stack of where China has the advantage. You start with energy. China has an advantage in electricity generation, and that's because 15 years ago, the government had the foresight to invest massively in energy transmission. When you generate electricity in the north, it has to be be transported to the south, right? And when you generate electricity, especially in clean energy, where there's sun, there's wind, there's water, not necessarily is where they need the electricity. So it has to be transmitted to somewhere else. So the state grid in China, there's two grids, right? There's a north and south. They make $90 billion of CapEx annually. The United States, 30 billion only. So the United States is massively underinvesting in electricity transmission. And, but China has been doing this for the last 15 years. And the result of that is China's installed base of electricity generation capacity is 2.6 times that of the United States. And even better, the net additions to capacity that China is putting in is 9 times that of the United States. So China's growth in electricity capacity is much, much faster than what's going on in the US. And most of the net add increase is in clean energy, solar power, okay? The end result of all of this is that China's electricity on a per kilowatt hour basis is about 40% cheaper than that of the United States. So China has an energy advantage in AI, because you know when you burn all these GPUs, train large language models and run inference, you're burning energy, lots of energy. The big difference between machines is machines eat a lot of energy, but the brain operates on very low energy. So that's the one thing. And then we look at how much it costs to build a data center. So it's 60% cheaper to build data centers in China. This is before you buy the chips, the GPUs. And then you look at the model development. I actually think that the Chinese models are not very far behind the United States. And there's a reason for that. China has a lot of engineers. And it's the country that produced the most STEM students every year. And training, you would think that developing AI and training models is a very sort of high-level research type exercise. But a lot of the work is actually in the engineering. You have to work on the system to make the system very efficient in training the model with hundreds of billions of parameters, even 1 trillion parameters. If the system is not efficient, it will cost you a lot of GPU resources. So China being lacking in GPUs actually creates an advantage of starvation. When you don't have a lot of resources, you are forced to innovate at the systems level. And this is where China is strong. And lots of engineers, talent. Globally, so very interesting thing, globally, almost half of the AI scientists and researchers have had a degree from a Chinese university.
Globally?
Globally. Whether they work in the US companies or they work in Chinese companies or anywhere globally. So what that means is you go to a company in the US, many of them are ethnic Chinese. And that's very, and I just recently saw a post, a social media post. Someone working at Meta, which is Facebook, is complaining that this is not a non-Chinese person. He's complaining that the AI team that he's working in, everybody is speaking Chinese and they're sharing ideas in Chinese he doesn't understand.
But they're so smart in creating all these AI tools, they should be able to real-time translate Chinese into any languages.
Yeah, but
still,
in a sort of water cooler conversation where you sit down in the cafeteria, it's like, it's hard to, capture everything, right? So, so what that means is a lot of the idea sharing and exchange is happening in Chinese, globally, in AI. This is the first time Chinese language is an advantage. It had been a disadvantage for Chinese companies to expand overseas because when Alibaba goes to open up an office in Italy or in Japan, or in the US, the people that we hire locally, they can't speak Chinese, so they speak English. So our people sitting in Hangzhou have to communicate to them in our second language, which is not ideal. Yeah. And I think that's a huge hindrance for Chinese companies to expand overseas. But now, knowing Chinese has become an advantage in the AI world. And that's very, very interesting, right? So anyway, I've just listed a number of these sort of advantages that China has, but the biggest advantage is that I believe the approach that Chinese companies are taking toward the large language models, which is open source, will accelerate the adoption of AI and will really make the really realize the proliferation of AI that would benefit broader society. Okay, and the reason open source is so important is that it is cheap. It actually doesn't cost anything to use open source models. Alibaba has our version of, we publish many versions in the open source, and we're available in all the open source marketplaces in the United States, around the world. People can just take our model, download it, and put it on their infrastructure or put it on their notebook computer and start running AI at no cost. So the open source approach is helping the proliferation of AI, whereas in the United States, if you want to use AI, you got to pay OpenAI a lot of money to use AI. So I think that's ultimately the advantage of China, because the winner is not about who has the best model. The winner is about who could use it the best in their own industries, in their own lives. And that's going to be in China.
So what is the fundamental reason behind the differences between the Chinese AI model that emphasize on open source and the US model that is more private, closed source with data and all these models that are sold on market price? I mean, is there a significant difference between the way that companies compete in different countries, or their incentives again from the government that encourage them to be more generous about their resources?
Okay, well, let's say I'll give you an example. You take a Middle Eastern country, let's say people in Saudi Arabia. They say, well, we want to develop AI, and we want our AI to be sovereign to us, meaning that it's Saudi-developed AI. But of course, most countries in the world don't have the actual talent to develop their own sovereign AI. So if they're choosing between using OpenAI through an API or just taking the Alibaba open source model, just taking that and develop on top of it, I think the cost benefit is clearly in favor of open source. And there's also another reason, data privacy. If you are using OpenAI and doing further training on the model, you're feeding your data into an API. You have no idea, it's a black hole. You have no idea where that data is going. Whereas if you work with open source AI, you can better control data privacy, and you can set up your own private cloud to store your data. And so globally, as both public, like governments, and also private enterprises look at which AI I should adopt, I think they will lean toward developing open source AI, or developing on top of open source AI. For cost reasons and for data privacy reasons.
Certainly, but let's take Alibaba as an example. How do you guys make money by being so generous, right? Allowing people to use your open source AI. You must be making money somewhere else, right?
Yeah, so that is a great question. And so we don't make money from AI. That's the answer, but no, we remember we run a cloud computing business. So when you run models, you need to have cloud infrastructure. and it's a very sophisticated infrastructure. It's not something that any company can just hire a few engineers to build. You need both the expertise in that infrastructure of running AI and also the scale, because this is a scale game with, just like individually, we don't build our own hotels. You go rent a hotel, you go stay in a hotel. So because the hotel operators have scale. Same thing as the data center business, the cloud business. It's all about aggregating infrastructures, and you, as you have many customers, you have that operating leverage to lower the unit cost of serving your customers. So through our cloud service, if people are running AI and they happen to want to use Alibaba Cloud, we have a whole suite of products from storage to data management to security to networking to containers, which is a term that I really don't understand anyway. I'll just say it. So all of these suite of products will help you run your AI more efficiently on our infrastructure, and that's how we monetize.
Great. So my last question before I turn to the Q&A from the iPad, by the way, sorry, is there are a lot of students here. In fact, 80% of the audience are students, ranging from undergrads all the way to PhDs. And Joe told me he's very excited about seeing so many students because he's used to seeing, government officials and businessmen, investors, and students, not some people who he commonly sees. So he's very happy to provide advices. So what kind of skills you think young people should get in preparation for the AI era? Or what majors they should specialize in?
Yeah, I think those are two different questions, like skill set and expertise in a subject matter. Those are two slightly different questions. From a skill set standpoint, I still think you should learn, number one, how to acquire knowledge, and number two, develop analytical framework for analyzing information, coming to your own conclusions, right? And a number of things that you could do to help you do that. There's no one lesson or one thing that help you with improving your analytical capabilities. For example, I always still tell people that they should learn some kind of computer code. It's like learning a foreign language. A foreign language is, you learn to communicate, let's say in Spanish with someone in Spain, French with someone in France. A computer language is you're communicating with a machine. You're telling the machine you're instructing the machine what to do. And there's a lot of logic behind, that language. How do you construct the right instruction to tell the machine to do the right thing? And that process itself is a thinking process. So I still advise kids to learn coding. Even though today with all of these vibe coding tools, you actually don't need to learn a computer code. You just use natural language to tell the tool how to write. The purpose is not to actually operate a machine. The purpose is going through that thinking process. I come from a legal and finance background. In finance, what do people use? Spreadsheets. I tell my kids, you should learn how to work a spreadsheet because constructing a formula in a spreadsheet and make it work, you just type in one number and it just, the number just sort of calculates itself, the formula calculates and then you have the results. It's a beautiful thing. And if you know how to work a really good spreadsheet, that's a thing, you're going through that thinking process. So skill set wise, I think learn how to acquire knowledge, learn how to analyze and think. And also an important skill is to ask the right questions. That's one thing. The other is sort of subject matter. I have been telling kids, young people, two subject matters that they should study. One is data science. it's a fancy term for statistics. It used to be called statistics. Now people call it data science. Because in the future, we're going to see data explosion. The more digitized the world, the more data you will acquire or the company will acquire. And understanding how to manage that and analyze data is very important. Now, having done the data side, you wanted to touch upon the human side of things. So study of psychology is important. Psychology and biology helps you understand how the human brain works. I still think, as I said, it is still the most efficient, energy-efficient machine there is. And understanding how the brain works is quite important. A third thing is, it just came up, I think a lot of kids today are not learning computer science, but instead they're learning material science. In the future, the world is, is being dominated by bits, but in the future, what makes the bits move faster is going to be atoms. Understanding how the atoms work is going to be quite important. People make semiconductors. There's going to be a lot of innovation in the semiconductor space. So I think material science will be an interesting thing to learn.
Great. Basically, material science, cognitive science, data science, and we still need to learn how to code, not because we are needed, but we need to have logic in order to understand what AI is doing to us. So I think that's a very good set of recommendations. So Joe actually has a very tight schedule, and I know there are over 1,000 people here. So today we have a very special arrangement. There was a QR code for some of you to scan to ask questions, but it may be already too late because I already received 10 questions here. So you don't need to come out to the microphone because there's none. So I'm just going to pick the best questions. Some of them are a bit interesting, but don't blame me for asking them. If you don't feel comfortable, don't answer them, but I'm pretty sure you have a way to deal with it. First, a little bit of promotion. Joe, do you know, we actually have a John's degree with Alibaba Cloud Computing. So it's not a degree, sorry, it's a course, but you can get credit in order to get a degree. Thank you very much for Alibaba's support. There's a student from that course who asked a question. Alibaba Group has been a driver of changes across industries. What would be the next big change driven by cloud computing that would influence people's behavior and businesses?
So we see cloud computing as a utility, and it is like electricity. It's powering different activities, different technologies. And the hottest area in cloud computing is obviously AI, because cloud is powering the usage, both the training of the AI models, but also the usage, which is the applications, the inferencing of AI. So I'll mention probably the next sort of big transformation in AI is when people start to use AI not as just a tool, but as a friend. Right now, AI seems to be more of a tool. We all want to use it to make ourselves more efficient, our company more efficient. AI is already helping us to code, so we don't have to have as many software engineers. But when does AI become sort of your companion? That's when if most people start to see AI just like it's another human being, that's going to really transform the world. It's going to transform behavior. Sometimes it's scary to think about that, but I see that happening.
So is it what people call ASI, like artificial superintelligence, and this is something that...
or AGI, artificial general intelligence, when AI, the traditional Turing test, the AI is behaving or acting in a certain way that you can't tell if it's a human being or not.
Yep.
Right? You can't tell. So when you're interacting with it, when you're doing a back and forth interaction, AI is coming up with answers just like it's your friend. That is both exciting but also kind of scary.
Okay, so the second question is very interesting, and I wanted to ask this question, but the theme was set by the committee led by Professor Chen. So, but this question, which is a career advice question, many students and some mid-career people like me have been thinking about starting a business or joining a startup. In the late 90s, you had a very good job, I was told, in Hong Kong. And then you went to Hangzhou, you met then your co-founder, Jack Ma. Why did you decide to give up a pretty lucrative salary to join a startup that may or may not have such a bright future? What determined your decision? And for people who want to join a startup, what should be the right moment and what are the critical considerations that they should have?
When young people or even old people like me make decisions, we're assessing risk and upside. If you make a decision and things don't go your way, you're taking a risk. But if things go well, then what is the upside? So you can pretty much, it's not exactly a mathematical thing, but you can pretty much assess the downside and the upside. When I joined Alibaba, I thought that the downside risk was very limited. Why? Because I have a good university degree. I went to law school. I have a law degree. And worst comes to worst, I can always work as a lawyer. So the downside is limited, but the upside is, you can't imagine. It's unlimited. And so I was facing an asymmetrical risk situation. Just the finance students here, it's just like a call option, right? So the decision is very easy for me. Asymmetrical risk reward. And you always wanted to find those asymmetrical risk reward situations. But I think if you really try hard to find it, you may not be able to find the opportunities come to you. So the most important thing for the young people here is preparedness. You have to be prepared to seize that opportunity when it comes along. You don't know when it's going to come along.
Yeah, so this question is about whether AI is the next internet bubble. We have gone through the early 2000 bubble booming and then burst. And if you pay attention on the stock prices of the Magnificent Seven, they have been rising like crazy, and I regretted so much for selling my NVIDIA stocks too early. So we are not asking for stock market tips, but do you think there's a bubble? And if it is not, why do you think this time is different?
Yeah, well, there's really two concepts of a bubble. There's a real bubble, and then there's a financial market bubble. I have no idea whether there is a financial market bubble because valuation of stocks is kind of an art. You have to, even though it's very, there are established theories on how you value a stock. You can assign a stock a 50 times P multiple because you think the growth rate is very, very high. Does that make sense? I don't know. There may be a financial market bubble relating to AI, but the AI phenomenon is real. So all the infrastructure people are building, all the development resources that go into models, it's not going to go to waste because it's a real phenomenon. Just like internet, in the year 2000, around March, there was an internet bubble bursting. It was a stock market bubble bursting. But the internet today, the internet is here. In fact, the internet is even stronger today, right? So the technology itself is not a bubble.
So this question is very interesting. Our students are really smart. They ask more interesting questions than me. So about management style in managing different types of companies, right? So you have your professional sports investment. I don't know how involved you are in managing your basketball teams and also a lacrosse team, and also managing a tech company. What are the similarities between managing the two different types of companies, and what are the dissimilarities? And how important it is to build a team and a corporate culture? So I guess it's a very broad question about leadership, management in at least two very different sectors that you have businesses in.
Yeah. When I bought the Brooklyn Nets, the NBA, people try to give me unsolicited advice. They say, professional sports is totally different. You're used to business, managing a company, but in pro sports, there are stars. It takes a different kind of approach to manage a professional sports team. And Joe, you really don't understand how it works, so you have to entrust it to the people. And then I found out that the people that are involved in the sports world, they don't know anything. All they know is they have relationships. They have thick Rolodex. So they know who to call. They have relationships with the players' agents and all that. Now what I'm seeing is managing a sports team, the philosophies are converging between business world and the professional sports world when it comes to good management. Number one, you have to pick good people. So in my Brooklyn Nets organization, I have a very good general manager that manages the basketball aspects. So which players to sign, trades, draft picks, and things like that. That's the basketball part. And then I have a CEO that manages the business part. That's selling tickets, selling sponsorships, marketing, fan base development, things like that. Same thing. I mean, just like in a business, you really have to rely on people, and you really need to find people that are better, more skilled, more talented, and smarter than you are. Otherwise, you become the bottleneck to the growth of the organization. So in basketball, I am not an expert in basketball, right? Much less an expert in playing basketball. But so there are a lot. You want to find the most expert people and then develop that trust with your management team.
So basically, a visionary leader that motivates the team to move in the same direction, at least for a long time. How about compensation? Do you have to pay your employees at Alibaba as much as you pay your NBA players?
Yes.
So,
yeah, I mean, look, it is, this is what I worry about, is how do we retain talent? Good people, they're always in demand. There's always going to be competitors that will be calling them. So developing a compensation philosophy, and also you have to customize a lot of the compensation when it comes to very senior talent in the company. I see my job as, because every time, we have a compensation committee on the board that's independent directors, but the independent directors are not very familiar with the operations of the company and with individuals in the company. So my job is to communicate how important our team is to our independent board and the comp committee so that I can convince them to pay them a lot of money because they're worth it.
Great. So we have a few minutes left. I guess let me ask you an easy question for you. And in 2 minutes, can you tell us a little bit about what's Alibaba's AI strategy? What are you guys focusing on right now, and what's the next step? Without revealing too much trade secrets, obviously.
No, our AI strategy is very simple. Number one, we do both large language model and cloud so that we can make money on the cloud piece, on providing the infrastructure for for AI and for the digital age. And then on the model, we open source it so that more people adopt it. It's pretty simple. That's the strategy.